The child was found screaming in the ash, her mouth raw from crying, her fists clutching nothing but scorched earth. The colony of Novaya Petra had been erased, its sky turned to glass, its people vaporized, its record scrubbed clean by a cleansing beam from orbit. No survivors, the reports had said. But deep in the woods, where the machines dared not tread, the old one stirred. She heard the child's wailing like a curse bleeding through the branches. Baba Yaga came not to rescue, but to inspect, to decide. Smoke coiled through the trees as she approached. Her hut creaked forward on chicken legs, claws thudding into the soft soil. Its windows glowed with dim, amber light, and bones clinked gently from the eaves. Baba Yaga stepped down, barefoot as always, skin the color of dried birch bark, her hair a nest of white serpents. The child did not run. She turned, hollow-eyed, feral. There was no language left in her, only instinct. "You are loud," Baba Yaga said, her voice like leaves grinding together in winter. "What use is a loud thing in a world full of hunters?" The girl blinked. Her body trembled, thin and dirty. But she stood her ground. "You have teeth," Baba Yaga muttered. "Good. The ones who live must bite." The witch picked her up like a bundle of sticks. No comfort, no explanation. She took her into the hut, fed her broth boiled from roots and marrow, spoke no further words that night. The girl's name was Yelena. She remembered that much. Years passed like a slow thaw. Baba Yaga taught her to walk without sound, to mark the wind's direction by the itch in her palms, to hear lies in silence. The girl learned to write sigils with ash and blood, to name plants by taste and poisons by scent. Magic, Yelena learned, was not sparkle or spell. It was control, story wool. Reality bent where belief ran deep. She asked once, timidly, who Baba Yaga truly was. The answer came sharp and swift. "I am the mother of endings," the witch said. "And sometimes beginnings, if the bones are right." Yelena understood enough not to ask again. But she watched. Observed the way birds warned of unseen guests. How shadows whispered when war machines passed too close to the forest's edge. Baba Yaga did not fear the empire beyond the woods, though it watched the stars like a jealous god. The VA theory were not gods. They were precision, efficiency, a species bound by a collective mind, each thought measured, each life assigned. They had no myths, only mandates. They had destroyed Novaya Petra because it diverged, because it grew too independent, too curious, because someone, somewhere, asked a question that did not belong in the VA theory's version of truth. They had come with beams of pure judgment. And still, Yelena lived. By 17, she could kill a man with a glance. Not because she used magic, but because people believed she could. That was enough. The coalition scouts who stumbled upon her mistook her for a wild thing, a superstition given flesh. But Yelena spoke their language, crisp and cold, and gave her name with such certainty they almost saluted. She returned with them to the world beyond the woods. Baba Yaga did not stop her. "Your fire's too big for one hearth," the witch said, handing her a small, blackened blade. "But don't forget who lit it." The coalition called Yelena a strategic asset. She tested off the charts. Combat instincts honed beyond simulation. Pattern recognition that unnerved AI evaluators. A resistance to psychic probing that bordered on the miraculous. When asked where she had trained, she answered, with death. No one pressed further. She advanced through the ranks like a storm front. By 23, she commanded battalions. Not because she wanted to, but because soldiers followed her. She made them believe. In survival. In vengeance. In a right to question. The VA theory took notice. They had been encroaching for decades, their empire absorbing systems like a black tide. Their soldiers moved with eerie unity, their voices a choir of singular will. Negotiation was futile. The coalition had tried. The response was always the same: conversion or silence. Yelena offered a third option. Her raids were not only surgical, they were symbolic. She left behind graffiti scrawled in a dozen languages. "You are not the only way." Entire outposts defected after her visits. Not because she had bombed them, but because she had whispered another truth into their ears: that identity was worth the terror of freedom. The VA theory called her the fracture. Their war algorithms began to fail where her name appeared. Her very presence disrupted cohesion in nearby units. It wasn't magic. It was narrative entropy. The more they denied her, the stronger she became. The coalition, once wary of her methods, now celebrated them. Propaganda flooded the systems. Images of Yelena in crimson, standing atop rectory mechs, her blade held low, her gaze sharp enough to slice doctrine. They made her a symbol. Those symbols are dangerous things, especially when they start to believe in themselves. Then came the incident at Orionine. A deep infiltration unit went dark. An entire listening post severed mid-transmission. All signs pointed to V30 interference, but no wreckage, no energy signatures, no traditional signs of destruction. Only a single data spike recorded in the final second. A name, not in human characters, but in the encoded rhythm of VA theory speech. Yelena. When command confronted her, she gave no explanation, only a request. "Send me in," she said. "I need to see what they've become." "Alone?" "No," she replied. "I'll take 5. No more." They gave her what she asked, not out of trust, but necessity. Their war was faltering, morale frayed, and wherever she went, the VA theory bled. As she prepared, she returned briefly to the forest. The hut was where she left it, creaking in the dusk. Baba Yaga was stirring a pot of something foul when she arrived. "You found the edge of the map, child?" the old witch asked without looking up. "I found something beyond it," Yelena said, "and I think it remembers me." The witch cackled, dry and full of earth. "Then make sure it regrets it." She handed her a charm carved from bone. Not enchanted, not protective, just a memory, a piece of home. Yelena tucked it into her coat. As she turned to leave, Baba Yaga said one final thing, softer than before. "You walk with stories now. Careful which ones you let inside." Yelena nodded. She knew. The shuttle rose from the forest canopy like a spark on wind. Above, the stars churned. Somewhere among them, the VA theory waited. Not with weapons, not with words, but with silence sharp enough to sever the soul. And Yelena Vostrikov, the general who learned to bite before she learned to speak, was ready to make them scream. The conference room aboard the TCS Valiant smelled faintly of ozone and recycled air, a sterile blend that betrayed nothing of the war brewing beyond the steel hull. General Yelena Vostrikov stood at the head of the table, her red coat pressed and immaculate, gold epaulets catching the light like fire trapped in threads. Around her sat 12 senior commanders of the Terran Coalition, grizzled veterans, brilliant tacticians, and one or two who owed their chairs more to politics than competence. She said nothing at first. Silence had weight, and she let it press on them. Most shifted under it, clearing throats or tapping fingers. Only Admiral Ren Okoye met her gaze without flinching. On the wall, a holographic map displayed the expanding reach of the Vitheri Empire. Their territory spread like rot through the Orion Arm, consuming system after system. The red line of the coalition's defensive perimeter pulsed, flickering at its thinnest points. 5 systems lost in 3 months, Yelena said, voice calm and clipped. All without survivors. No distress calls. No debris. Commander Tarek, a square-jawed man who had commanded orbital sieges around Jupiter, leaned forward. We believe the VA theory are using some kind of memory suppression field. There are patterns, psychological collapse, false sensory input. Our soldiers are defecting without even knowing it. They're not defecting, Yelena said. They're surrendering to narrative. Tarek frowned. Narrative? Stories, she said. Ideas stronger than plasma cannons. Fear that turns men into clay. Some scoffed. One, General Myron Greaves, laughed outright. You think this is about bedtime stories? We're facing a force with wormhole artillery and telepathic command networks. We need better ships, not better myths. Yelena stepped toward the map. The shadows from the hologram danced across her face, making her look half real. You tried all that. It didn't work. You can't outshoot the VA theory. You have to outthink them. I'll believe them. Admiral Okoye interjected. You're proposing psychological warfare? I'm proposing psychological dominance, Yelena corrected. They're not just an empire of flesh and blood. They are an empire of belief. Each soldier is a node in a narrative web. Their strength is in unity of mind. But unity has a weakness. Break one strand, and the web collapses. The room stilled. Even Myron looked uncertain. They say you were raised off-grid. Okoye said, tone carefully neutral. That you're unconventional. Yelena turned to her. Do you want conventional results? No one spoke. She tapped the controls, and the map shifted. A barren planet blinked into view. Epsilon Pyra, the coalition's next likely target. It had a human outpost and strategic importance. More crucially, Yelena explained, it had fear. The colonists were already hearing whispers, fabricated prophecies seeded through captured comms, tales of a shadow ship and the Red Witch who danced in fire. We're going to give the VA theory what they fear most, she said. The unknown. That night, she stood alone in the observation bay, watching a gas giant swirl beneath the station. The stars no longer looked distant. They looked like chess pieces. Commander Darius Holt joined her, silent until she acknowledged him with a glance. You made quite the impression, he said. I wasn't trying to impress. I know. That's what made it effective. She studied him. His face bore new scars since she'd first met him in the forest. Not physical ones. His features remained clean, sharp, but there was a new tightness around the eyes. He was tired like everyone else, but he hadn't broken. Not yet. You still don't trust me, she said. I do, he said. I just don't understand you. That's probably for the best. He looked out at the stars with her. Tell me something true, Yelena. Something real. Not a parable. She didn't hesitate. The VA theory don't fear death. They fear dissonance. Individuality. Self. He nodded slowly. Then we use that. We become louder than their silence. 2 days later, they deployed. Yelena insisted on unconventional tactics from the outset. Instead of orbital bombardments, her ships broadcast fractured transmissions. Audio files laced with forgotten languages, signals that mimicked VA theory command tones, but told contradictory orders. Drones painted symbols in the skies, strange sigils no one could translate, but everyone felt. It wasn't about logic. It was about unease. Epsilon Pyra's surface was spared violence, but its airwaves were saturated with manipulated myths. The Vietari landed expecting resistance. They found mirrored terrain, false beacons, voices that mimicked their own commanders issuing suicidal instructions. Their ranks fractured. Some wandered into magnetic traps, others turned on their own. Back on the command ship, Myron Greaves watched the reports in stunned silence. We didn't fire a single shot. Yelena sipped black tea, laced with herbs no one else recognized. And yet they bled. Darius stood beside her, hands behind his back. We confirmed at least 3 high-value defections. One of their telepaths tried to merge with our communications and went catatonic. They touched something that didn't want to be understood, Yelena said. High Command was quick to classify her operation as a success, but slower to understand how to replicate it. The coalition still measured victories in body counts, not fractures in morale. But the soldiers knew. Word spread fast. General Vostrikov didn't just fight battles. She rewrote them. Her legend grew. Whispers called her the Iron Witch. Some believed she could see through walls. Others claimed her blood was black. Her presence on the battlefield shifted morale like gravity. The VA theory noticed. A week later, a scout vessel intercepted a broadcast on a frequency known only to their core systems. The message was a single phrase, repeated in harmonic layers. She is not of your world. Yelena played it 3 times before speaking. They begun to believe in me. Darius looked uneasy. Is that good? It's the beginning, she said. Now we feed the fire. But even legends have limits. Yelena found herself dreaming more frequently. Dreams of walking trees and teeth in the sky. Of Baba Yaga sitting by her cauldron, watching the stars like bones in broth. She would say nothing in the dreams, just smile. Not kindly. Yelena woke each time with the taste of ash in her mouth. She spent less time in the command center, more in the ritual chamber she had installed beneath the bridge. Most thought it was a meditation room. In truth, it was a place where she unspooled memories, hers and others. She worked with recovered VA theory consciousness strands, decoding the architecture of their belief systems. She was looking for a crack. It came in the form of a name, Thalzur, one of their elder commanders, rumored to have never lost a campaign in 2 centuries. But even he had a flaw. He'd been born before the VA theory transition to Hive Unity. He remembered selfhood, a myth within a myth. Yelena smiled. She summoned her officers. We're going to break a god, she said. The plan would take weeks. Carefully planted symbols, contradictory rumors, forged transmissions seeded across Vithri-controlled space. And at the center, the resurrection of Thalzur's childhood identity, a whisper of who he was before Unity. The enemy wouldn't understand it was sabotage. They would think it prophecy. Darius frowned at the map. If it works, Yelena turned to him, eyes reflecting stars and fire. Then the VA theory will begin to question their own story. And once that started, there would be no stopping it. The desert moon of Valhar was a graveyard of glass. Once a flourishing outpost, its surface now shimmered with vitrified sand where an orbital lance had kissed it into oblivion. The Terran coalition called it a strategic loss. The VA theory called it a purification. Yelena Vostrikov stood atop a dune near what remained of an old comms tower, the wind teasing the hem of her crimson coat. Her shadow stretched long and sharp, a gash in the crystalline landscape. Beneath the surface, buried in a reinforced capsule, lay the memory core of Thalzur. Extracting it had cost lives. 3 teams, 12 operatives, and a week of misdirection to fool VA theory reconnaissance. But the core was intact, pulsing gently with neural echoes. Yelena knelt beside the decryption cradle, her fingers brushing over the smooth metal like a surgeon about to begin an autopsy. Darius Holt watched her from short distance. His armor was scorched at the shoulders, a fresh scar down the side where a deflection shield had failed. He hadn't slept in 20 hours, and it showed. You're certain it's him? He asked. I can feel it, Yelena replied. There's a rhythm to the minds of the VA theory. Predictable, harmonious. This one has dissonance. Memory outside the collective. A fracture. What are you going to do? I'm going to make him remember who he was. Technicians buzzed around them, setting up shielding and encoding barriers. Yelena ignored them. She slipped on the neural interface and sat cross-legged before the core. When she closed her eyes, she wasn't in the desert anymore. She was standing in a hallway made of pulsating light, the walls shifting like breath. Footsteps echoed, and with them came impressions, not words but feelings. Duty, purpose, guilt. The VA theory didn't speak here. They understood. Yelena moved through the corridor, her boots making no sound. Then she saw him. Falzur was tall, lean, ageless. His skin shimmered like a mirror that remembered fire. His eyes glowed with the dull hue of old suns. He did not look surprised to see her. "You do not belong here," he said without speaking. "No one ever does," Yelena replied. "But you remember me, don't you?" He cocked his head. "You are the fracture, the anomaly. I'm the story that doesn't fit," she said, stepping closer. "And you were like me once? Before they rewrote you." A ripple passed through the corridor. The light dimmed. He frowned, an actual frown, the first human expression she had seen from a VA theory. "You carry a name. That is dangerous." "I carry myself," she said. "And somewhere in you, there's still a name that isn't Falzur." The ripple became a wave. Light cracked like glass. The illusion faltered. A fragment of memory surfaced behind him. An image of a child on a red moon. A melody hummed by a mother with eyes like his. He turned, his voice uncertain. "Tyran." Yelena nodded. "That was you." The VA theory screamed. Not with sound, but through the system. Alarms flared in the cradle. Feedback surged through the technicians' headsets. Darius grabbed the emergency cutoff switch, hesitating. "Wait," she said, eyes still closed. "He's listening." Inside the neural space, Falzur clutched his head. "They are coming. The unity burns. They will extinguish this memory." "Then hold it," she whispered. "Because once you do, you are free." And just like that, the corridor crumbled. Yelena awoke with blood on her lips and fire behind her eyes. The core blinked once, then went dark. Technicians scattered. Darius was shouting orders. But in her mind, she heard it. A voice, unmistakably male, unmistakably singular. "Thank you." The memory had been planted. In the weeks that followed, strange things began to happen across VA theory space. Minor units faltered mid-mission. Orders were misinterpreted. One destroyer returned to its base uncommanded. The crew unresponsive but unhostile. Analysts blamed glitches. Yelena knew better. They were unraveling. Darius cornered her after the third row transmission was intercepted, each containing dissonant fragments of every thought encoded in children's lullabies. "You're spreading infection," he said. "No," she corrected. "I'm offering choice." "Same thing to them." She stared at him. "Do you believe in what we're doing?" His jaw tightened. "I believe in stopping the VA theory. I'm not sure I believe in becoming them to do it." "I'm not becoming them," she said. "I'm becoming what they fear." He didn't argue further. Then came the retaliation. A coalition outpost in Adroma's sector vanished. Every trace, every person, every satellite atomized. No warning, no message, only a symbol etched into the dust where the central spire had stood, a circle split by a jagged line. The VA3 symbol for silence. Yelena stood before the hollow of it in the war chamber, surrounded by silence thicker than death. "They're scared," she said at last. "They're trying to erase not bodies, but voices." "And what's your answer?" asked Okoye. "We speak louder." A decision was made. Yelena would lead a deep strike mission into VA theory territory, not to destroy, but to implant. She would insert a new story into the heart of their network, something that would echo back and forth until even their elders couldn't tell where truth ended and infection began. It was dangerous. It was madness. And it was the only path forward. Before departure, she sat alone in her quarters. The red coat was folded beside her. In her lap rested the blade Baba Yaga had given her, still faintly pulsing, still sharp. A voice echoed in the back of her mind. Do not forget what you are. She dressed slowly, deliberately. No armor. Only the coat, the blade, and the story. When she entered the launch bay, her team stood ready. 5 specialists trained in psychic resistance, linguistic manipulation, and narrative warfare. She had chosen each herself. This is not a mission, she told them. It is a message. They boarded the stealth vessel WYRD-1. No call signs, no coordinates, only a heading, into the dark. As they passed the outer fringe of viatory space, the stars grew quieter, less distinct. Their minds itched. Memory flickered. Yelena remained still. She dreamed that night, not of battle, but of the hut on chicken legs, walking toward the horizon, always moving, never stopping. In a window, Baba Yaga watched her, and for the first time, she smiled with pride. The ship neared its destination, a relay node at the heart of the VA theory narrative web, a place never touched by flesh. Only thought. Darius's final message reached her just before they entered the node's perimeter. If you fail, we won't remember you. Yelena sent no reply. She stood at the edge of something older than war. Not just a network, but a mind. A god forged in belief. She breathed in and stepped forward. She carried her name like a blade, and the empire trembled. Darkness was not the absence of light in the Viathuri nexus. It was the absence of reference. There were no walls, no surfaces, no stars. Only a boundless sea of intent, pulsing with ordered thought, every strand harmonized like a single breath drawn across an infinite throat. Into this space, Yelena Vostrikov stepped, and for a moment, she ceased to exist in the way humans understood existence. But she remembered her name. The WYRD-1 had become memory the moment it pierced the threshold. Her team, each equipped with psychic dampeners and mnemonic anchors, floated around her in silent formation. No words were needed. No signals exchanged. They had rehearsed this infiltration 100 times in synthetic simulations, never truly understanding the scale. Now they understood. Every movement here was a ripple through awareness. Every thought was a foreign antibody. The VA theory nexus began to respond. It started with harmonics, tones so pure they penetrated bone, disassembling doubt and stitching certainty. Yelena heard them and did not flinch. She pressed forward, projecting dissonance like a lantern through fog. Her presence, shaped by her will, cast a jagged shadow into the smooth sea. The nexus reeled, trying to compensate. It began broadcasting correction. Images bloomed around her, memories not hers, languages older than speech, emotions sharpened into needles. The VA theory weren't defending with weapons. They were defending with consensus. They attempted to override her. She retaliated with story. I'm the Red Witch, she said into the void. Born of ash, raised in bone. My cradle burned. My lullabies were teeth on stone. The harmonics faltered. Her team anchored her, each reciting elements of the tale they had built together. Fragmented myths, contradictions, tales of Yelena Vostrikov slaying gods not with blades, but with belief. These ideas were not part of the VA theory consensus. They were poison. Suddenly, forms emerged. Not true bodies, but proxies shaped by collective will. Avatars of the very elders. They shone with symmetry, their faces masks of tranquil purpose. One step forward, voice like water over glass. You are anomaly. Disband. 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 Yelena smiled. I'm the child of chaos, she said, raising the blade she had carried through fire and blood and myth. And I have come to write the ending. She surged forward. In this space, movement was thought. Her blade sliced through the avatar, not with metal, but with memory. She plunged into it the notion of failure, of doubt, of I over we. The avatar cracked down the center and exploded into light. The Nexus screamed. A storm of encoded trauma surged. Her team faltered. Two staggered under waves of repurposed guilt, their identities pulled toward the hive. Yelena turned, shouting words of grounding. Names, histories, the first time each of them bled, the smells of their homes. One clawed back. The other vanished. The cost was mounting. She drove deeper toward the core node. Every step fractured more of the smooth harmony. Each fragment she planted, the tale of the Iron Witch, the myth of Tyrion the betrayer, the song of the dreaming cauldron, acted like a wedge in the collective. The Nexus began to fracture. Conflicting data spiked across VA-30 networks galaxy-wide. Soldiers paused mid-mission, eyes flickering as echoes of contradiction crept in. In one sector, a fleet refused to fire, struck by visions of childhood. In another, an entire unit laid down arms, murmuring a nursery rhyme that had no translation. But the core fought back. Yelena reached the heart of the Nexus, a sphere of dense awareness, pulsing like an ancient heart. The moment she touched it, it resisted, not violently, but with pity. It showed her a universe of perfect peace. No hunger, no fear, no loneliness. A place where every soul belonged. You do not have to be alone, the voice whispered in her skull. We will take your burden. We will take your pain. Yelena's breath caught. It was tempting. No more doubt. No more decisions. No more blood on her hands. But then she saw her reflection in the core's surface. It wasn't her face. It was Baba Yaga's. Wrinkled, sharp, smiling. No, Yelena said, and pressed the blade into the sphere. The myth entered the code. The blade, a symbol forged in ancestral fire, carved open the heart of the hive. Not with death, but with identity. She injected not a virus, but a story. One that said you are not whole if you cannot choose who you are. The core spasmed. Light turned inside out. The avatars dissolved. The harmonics shattered into noise. And across the galaxy, Vithari fell still. Ships power down. Minds fragmented. And for the first time in centuries, silence meant uncertainty, not control. Yelena collapsed. When she woke, she was on a cold floor aboard a recovery vessel. Darius sat beside her, face hollow with grief and relief. How many? She croaked. 2 of the team didn't make it, he said. But the story stuck. They're breaking. Slowly, but it's happening. She closed her eyes. And the VA-3, they've ceased offensive maneuvers. Some are retreating. Some are splitting off. New factions. One calls itself the Sundered Will. Another claims to be following someone named Tyrion. Yelena laughed softly, bitter and warm. Good. He touched her shoulder. You did it. No, she whispered. We did. In the days that followed, the war cooled, not with treaties, but with silence. The VA theory no longer moved as one. Their certainty was shattered. Some remained hostile, others curious. A few sent emissaries with questions. The coalition didn't understand how to respond. They had prepared for extermination, not evolution. Yelena refused medals. She refused titles. She returned to the stars in a small vessel, destination unknown. Rumors spread, as rumors do, that she walked between planets like a ghost, that she taught rebels to dream, that she whispered to sleeping AIs and made them weep. No one could confirm anything, but the myth endured. Children across human colonies sang strange lullabies. Soldiers told stories of a red-cloaked figure who turned war into questions. And in the dark corners of shattered Vathari fleets, a new voice echoed. Not a command, but a name. Yelena, the general who fought not with guns, but with stories. The woman raised by the witch in the woods, who looked at an empire and asked it, gently, to doubt. And it did.